and I gave you one.
Daryl,
Picked and chose out. We can talk about this first, or we can talk about it at last.
Appreciate it.
However you
ready?
wanna do
But
it.
this is important.
Okay.
That's
Todd, you ready?
there.
All right, we'll call this meeting to order. It's 4:02 on Thursday, July 18th, 2024. I'm gonna say a prayer before we get started, and Mr. Smith's gonna lead us in a pledge, and then we'll get on with this budget hearing. Dear Lord, we first of all want to thank you for this day that you've given us. We thank you that we live in this county that we call Gilchrist County, and that we live in the state of the United States of America, dear Lord. Now we come to you and we ask, dear Lord, that you be with us as we go through the budgets today, and we try to do what's right with the county's money, manage it correctly, and fund the things that need to be funded to help this county run smooth and efficiently, dear Lord. We just ask that you give us the knowledge and the ability to look through these numbers and do what would be pleasing in your side and what would be pleasing for the county and what would help this county run the smoothest, dear Lord. So we ask that. As always, we ask a special blessing on our first responders and our military and our country in whole, dear Lord, as right now we're in the midst of the Republican convention, and we just ask, dear Lord, that you be with them as they conduct their business, and that the things they would do would be pleasing to you and would be pleasing to us as the United States, dear Lord. We ask all this in your wonderful name, dear Lord. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we will get started. I believe we have a agenda before us. Do I have a motion to approve are there any agenda changes that I need to know about?
Well, I gave you a handout on the proposed ad. that
Okay.
Since this is a workshop, you're not gonna be voting on it, but if consensus of the board is to approve that, I've given you one that I have prepared. I gave you the one that Levy County's utilized, that's on the Florida Association of Counties website. So we can discuss that, and if
Okay.
everybody's happy with it, we'll go forward with the advertisement on that.
All right, that sounds good.
I also had go ahead. Do you have something else?
I was just gonna say, we can handle that at the first or the last. You might wanna handle it for the last because you got all these people here on the
We'll
budget.
handle it right at the end
Yes,
before
sir.
we get out of here.
I had a request for public participation, just one person asked for 3 minutes.
Okay, I will give him some as soon as before we get started on this. But let's go ahead and we have a motion to approve the agenda. All right, we got a motion and a second, a motion by Commissioner Smith, a second by Commissioner Langford to approve the agenda. There will be one noted change to the end of the meeting, with the item for Mr. Lang and us to look over. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion carries. We are gonna move into our budget workshop, but I had a request for 3 minutes from, I believe, Mr. Stoney. If you'd like to come up and address us real quick before we get started.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, good to be here today. One thing that I'd like to address is the fund balance. I was at the meeting when you guys were talking about the fire census last year, and I think that went pretty good. You guys did a good job on that, but it was discussed at that time, so maybe we should hold off. I couldn't believe the number. It's like 90%. This year,
70%.
yeah, 90.1%. And then this year, a couple weeks ago, July 1st, your account was going over your numbers, and it was 70.6. And that's quite a large number, $16,522,888. The general fund recommendation, Florida, whatever, they ask for most of the time 2 months, which is 16.7%. That's a difference of 53.3%, or about $12,622,000. And I understand that some counties actually less than that, some are more. But my point in saying that $12 million, that might be a good starting point for you guys when you're saying, okay, what does each office want? Where are we at? And can you roll back? You know, being a 20-year politician, that was always what we tried to do, is say, okay, let's roll your taxes back. You need to pay less taxes. And when you get around to it and you get elected, like three of you up here, you forget about lowering those taxes, and you don't do it. And it's all talk and hearsay.
Well, we
Right.
have lowered the taxes for the last 3 years in a row.
Okay.
The taxes have gone up that people pay, but that's because their property values have gone up. But we've actually lowered the taxes for the last 3 years in a row.
You roll the millage back?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's what I'm talking about, because I think when you do the math, you can roll that millage back 1% or 2%. And that's what people are looking for, because if you look at Joe Biden's economy and the inflation is 20%, I mean, look at the gas prices, they're up 100%. People can't afford groceries or anything else. There was an article in Gainesville Sun today, I don't know if you guys read it, about how Florida is the 13th worst state in the country on debt, and people having a hard time. I think the debt was number 2, and number 3 was their credit rating. So pick up the Gainesville Sun today and read it, but the people hurting. And it's not just the low income people, it's the middle and the high income people. They can't afford to get by paycheck to paycheck. It's credit cards that they're living off of. And I don't know if you guys have that, but if you can't pay off your credit card, you're looking at 28% that you have to pay.
That's
And
right.
all I'm saying is now's the perfect time, maybe not come all the way down to the 16.7%, but come to 25 or 20. Because you guys are supposed to be good stewards of our money. You raised your right hand and said you were. And at the end of the day, that's what we're looking for out of you. And you're close. And I love Todd to death. I think he's a great guy. But I think if you're that high over, it could be considered overtaxing your citizens. Those little widow women, everybody else having a hard time paying those taxes while you sit on that money. And I'm not saying you're not making 5% in some bank, but why do you need to cover that much money at 90% and 70% the last two? Because it says it right here on your sheet that you were audited by the accountant 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. And that's what I'm concerned about. And I just wish that you guys would take a look at it, especially you guys running for office. You know, I hear a lot of times the argument is, oh, look at those people in the panhandle. They had the hurricane and everything else. They've got disaster relief, they've got FEMA and everything else that you get money for. They got grants for that kind of thing. But let's think about rolling it down a little bit. I mean, you're in a fortunate position, but I'd love to hear some input on that. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
We're gonna address that in this workshop.
I figured we were. I
you know, what this
wanted to
workshop is
say that,
about.
and I give him his chance to speak. That's what we'll be talking about today. So,
Anybody else?
well, usually there's not public participation, but anybody else want to speak? Since I've given it to one, I'll give it to anybody else. All right, we'll go ahead and get moving then. We're gonna turn it over to, our clerk of court. Are you gonna? Or
Mr.
you
Crosby
wanna-
actually had something that he wanted to present before I get started.
Okay.
Yes. If you would allow me, before we, as we start our 24-25 budget, I just sort of like to give you a state of the county. One of the reasons I would like to do this is with my absence coming up pretty soon, I'd like everyone to sort of know where we're at and what I see us facing, you know, in the future and all. And I've kind of went department by department, but there's a lot of other departments that aren't listed here that we have, that we work with as well, the funding. And so I just kind of wanted to sort of give you an idea of where I think we're going and where we're at today and some of the progress we made and some of the challenges that we're going to have in the future. If you sort of start off with your general government, you know, currently we have a lot of grants, and due to the work involved, I would recommend that the board look at a full-time grant position. That is not within our budget numbers today. That position would probably cost you somewhere from $60,000 to $65,000 with benefits and all. What a lot of people don't realize about grants are very detailed. Number one, you've got to write everything and you've got to get it right. You've got to get it submitted and work with others. But once you get it put together and you submit it, then you've got to answer the questions that they ask you about the grant. Once you get through that, and if the grant's awarded, then you gotta enter into contracts. You gotta submit quarterly reports, possibly working with engineering firms. You have a bid process, you've got, a budget that you have to work with, and you're submitting for reimbursements. So just getting a grant is the easy part a lot of times. Why it's still complicated, it's the easy part. And, and the beautiful thing about grants, they're very important to our community because they pay for a lot of things that we may not have, or we may be having to try to figure out to have without those fundings. So, for instance, we're building an office building, which we'll speak about a little bit later. Some of the things I want to let you know in our courthouse has a lot of age, and that's good. It's a very, very, very attractive courthouse, and we're very proud of it. There's been several upgrades. There's been a new roof, windows, a fire alarm system, and a security camera system in these upgrades. And some of these things, the court system has helped us pay for as well, so we've been grateful for that. We've been able to do that, but some of the repairs that are still needing to be done is updated lighting, painting of the interior, blinds and gutter work. So, and some other things, but this is just some things that we need to be looking at. As far as in our maintenance, what we call other buildings, with your new jail and an office building, yes, they will be new buildings, but they still require some maintenance. In the next year or two, you may be looking to need to add an additional maintenance position just to be able to keep up with the growth in the new buildings. They do the mowing of the parks, they do the day-to-day maintenance, and a lot of the repairs, just a general day repairs. So that would probably be about a $55,000 position at the day. I don't think that's something we need this year, but in the future, I do think that's something that you'll be looking at. And then when we get, I'll talk about fire and EMS together. We have everyone speaking, and I agree with it, that we need to open additional fire EMS stations for emergency response, which is greatly needed. Just some of the history on how the fire and EMS staffing came about. In 2006, they created the staffing that we have now, and that staffing was to have 2 rescues and a squad. Also in 2006, there was a fire chief, an assistant chief, a trainer for fire, an EMS chief, and assistant EMS chief. That is a total of 5 supervisor positions. Today, we share those 5 positions. We currently do that with 2 personnel. We've combined the fire EMS chief and have 1 assistant chief for fire EMS as well. So that reduced by 3 personnel. I think this is a better working way, but what that does, and the reason I do, is our people are dual certified and they work both fire, both EMS. So when you have 2 people telling you what to do with a fire chief and EMS chief, that gets confusing some days. So with that being one, I'm not complaining about that, but what I'm saying, that reduced you by about 3 response people because all of those people could respond. Since 2006, you've had approximately a 5,000 increase in new residents. That's about a third more residents than you had in 2006 with running the same response. I think we all agree. I'm not saying that we don't, but we need another rescue unit on the road running for the importance and the health and the care of our citizens. But just so everybody kind of can see, you're looking at roughly $600,000 just to staff a 24/7 unit. 1 unit is roughly $600,000. So I do feel like this is something we need to try to work towards, and we need to do. We have, and we all know people, we may be one of those people where it was glad to have that emergency response when we need it. We're kind of getting to a point that a lot of days, because of the way we run, we're either responding from Newberry or back from Gainesville, or we just don't have the coverage. And some of that is just due to our population. You also have got to remember, which is good, and we have 2 of the one of the highest rated, and the second one's rated pretty high. We have 2 nursing homes here also, and a lot of times we are responding quite often to those as well. Detention and corrections, a much needed jail is scheduled to be completed in August of 2024. Mr. Newton and I have been meeting with them quite often, at least monthly, and we are feeling pretty good about August. but we'll be glad when they say, yes, it's August, but that is coming. And, this new jail, it'll house between 90 to 100 inmates, where the old jail would house only 30 to 40. So that's a very positive for the county. Another positive for that was a $10.6 million. There was no grant funding. There was some funding that came through that the county wasn't expecting that helped move this project along, or it still may not be going on. And the good part is the county was only had to borrow $4 million to complete this project, the rest of it being in cash. And if everything works out the way it is looking like, due to the amount of funding we were spending with other counties, as we all know, to house inmates, that amount of money will make our payments. So it's not a hit to us. It's kind of came out as a zero hit to our budget at this time. As far as community development goes, that's building houses and different type of construction. Since January of 2019 to July 10th of 2024, there's been 1,259 permits issued for new construction. Now, some of that is commercial, but everybody can see what the commercial is. So that tells you that most of that is new residents and homes. And that does not, those permits do not include roof repairs, AC repairs, additions. This is a total new construction of a new home. So there's been a lot more permits than that issued. That's just the ones that's been new construction. As far as code enforcement goes, for several years, code complaints were extremely rare. We really didn't even have a code enforcement agent for quite a while. I mean, we might see a complaint once or twice a month, if that. Now the code complaints have become full-time service, with complaints coming in weekly. There has been more hearings in the last 3 years than in the previous 9. So that kind of tells you where our code enforcement is going to and what's happening there. Emergency management, for the last 5 years, there's been a storm activation at least once a year. Before that, we hardly had any storm evacuations, but we have had one at least every year. EM has been successful engaging the services of contractors to remove and manage debris, as y'all saw in our last storm that we had. EM holds trainings for CPR for school staff, nursing home staff, county staff, along with holding classes for the public as well. And also EM assists with multiple storm preparations throughout the year, and EM works directly with our health department, which our health department partners with us as well. We call that a partnership, and it's a great partnership to provide special needs care and all during storms and any other thing through the years that we can work together on. As you'll know, it was the dreaded word COVID. We worked very closely and did a lot of work with the health department in setting up places for COVID vaccination. And that all went, considering the pressure and how quick that had to happen, I thought it went off very, very well. So that worked well. And I think that just complements the staff that we have and the staff at the health department. Our E911 dispatch call center, technology and demand involving 911 calls have created a larger demand on 911 dispatchers and their qualifications. In 2012, when I started with the county, there was two dispatchers during the day and 1 at night. Now there's always a minimum of 3 due to the call load. So that sort of tells you how much the need of public is needed for the response of public service. Our communications, we just installed and they're still installing a new public radio system, which provides a wider coverage area. This results in a safer coverage throughout the county for all public safety. It also includes our Gilchrist County schools and the buses. So this is a great system. At first, we thought we were going to have to pay for that system. As y'all remember, we signed a payment for $1.6 million. We were able to get that funded so that we could reverse that. It didn't cost the county. We got funded $1,955,000 in appropriations to put that system in. So we were able to even come back and do a little enhancements on the system to make it a little better because of the additional funding. Solid waste. Currently, the monthly average is around 400 tons of trash and 40 tons of recycled items a month. The current facility was built in the 1990s and needs to be replaced and upgraded for faster handling of household trash and debris. Since 2013, the amount of the trash has increased by 80%. The new facility is estimated to cost between $7 and $8 million, with $3 million budgeted to start the construction of the facility, about half the actual size needed, with hopes of getting the additional 3.5 to 4.5 million in appropriations this year. So in your budget that we'll be discussing this year, there is a $3.5 million capital expenditure to start that construction. The staff outlined sites for the compactors have saved the county money and been a great resource to our residents. And the hauling of the trash to New River by the county instead of contracting that out has actually saved the county around $150,000 a year. This is savings for doing that. Our extension office, as I mentioned a minute ago, we're building a new $1 million facility, which is completely grant funded, and that is currently going to be built out by the rodeo arena. There are grants have been applied for in the amount of 1.5 million to help harden the facility and enlarge the facility with a full kitchen and shop area so that it could be used during storms. If you have a lot of workers come in to help you or helping a neighboring county, they would be able to be housed in this facility. Gilchrist County, as you know, has one of the top 4-H programs in the state of Florida. And also our extension agents work with homeowners and they work with farmers daily. As far as our road department goes, there's more and more traffic on roads due to increased population. Gilchrist County is also a pass-through county for other counties for work travel, as we know. So we have a lot of traffic. There's $800,000 in the budget to replace worn out and add additional equipment to support the needs of the road department. The recent purchase of the mini excavator with a saw head and a ditch bucket. We don't have the saw head yet, but we do have the ditch bucket. I'm starting to use it today. The ripper to mix existing lime rock roads, which will help reduce the use of lime rock, the cost of lime rock, and also be able to help us be able to work the roads, or the staff work the roads better, and also prep for chip and seal if we decide to do any chip and seal in these roads. You know, list of roads has been prepared and will be presented to you. The cost per mile is around 90 to 100,000. And there's no money in the budget at this time, but if that's something that the board wanted to do so many miles a year, you need to be considering adding that to your budget to do that as well. Any road that you chip and seal, of course, is going to reduce maintenance costs, reduce grading, reduce cost time, fuel time. So that can be a reduction in cost. So that expense will come back to you. Currently, the 4 new positions that were approved recently, they are in the process of hiring. A few of those, 1 or 2 of those have been filled. We've got some great applications. So hopefully those crews will be in and trained and be able to start helping in some individualized areas and projects of maintenance real soon. Just so people know, the county has 335 miles of lime rock dirt roads and 155 miles of paved road. So,
How many miles of dirt road?
355. 335, I'm sorry, 335. Okay. Some of the grant road projects that you have right now that we're working on is County Road 138. It's being worked on, waiting on the state to give us a reply. Northwest 30th and 20th, we have everything there, other than we ran into gopher tortoises and we're in the process of getting a permit for that. The contracts that we're waiting on that has been programmed is Northeast 30th, which is Dixie Gray. That'll be 2425. And South County Road 339, which is from 129 to the Lee County line, is in 2627. So those are coming up. Under review right now, which we haven't heard yet, but under review is County Road 341 from State Road 26 to 340. County Road 337, which is Addie Jones from State Road 26 to 110th. I will tell you on Addie Jones right now, we have culverts that are failing. Ms. Sharon is aware of those and had been brought to our attention. We do have an engineer right now working on a design for that replacement. Those are not going to be able to wait until this is funded.
There's 2 that we're gonna have to
Right.
replace out there.
Yeah.
And, I know we've been patching them, but there's no more patching to be done.
Yeah. They will have to be replaced, and we're probably looking somewhere from $50,000 to $100,000 to replace.
The County Road 341 and 337, what year is that gonna be in?
We don't have a year for those yet.
Those are the 2 that
they're
were
under
submitted.
review.
Review,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Yes, ma'am. And then Southeast 70th from 26 to 110th, that's the road out by Pawpaw's. there. And then, of course, recently completed was County Road 232 from US 129 to 47.
So,
They-
excuse me just a minute. So Southeast 70th and County Road 337 and County Road 41 are all under review?
They're under review. That doesn't
Okay,
mean they're gonna
right.
be programmed or
Okay.
funded, but when you look at the FDOT Oasis, they have three categories, and
Okay.
they're in the review category, which
So
is,
we might get funded for one and might get funded for all three. We don't know yet.
I do expect we'll get some. We may get more than one. I just don't know. Sometimes, even though it's a 5-year plan, it may be a 6-year plan instead of a 5-year
Yeah.
plan.
So Bobby, the money that the governor approved and the legislature allocated,
Mhm.
11 million this year, that would be the Dixie grade, the 339?
That Dixie grade and 339 should be, Dixie grade and 339 should be coming out of that along with your state roads. That's not all of the 11 million. You know, we
Okay.
there's still some work to be done on 129 in the north end of the county, where they have to finish that with some safety concerns at 340 and 129. And, there may be still, I think there is some design money in there for 26 as well. No construction money, but maybe just design money. So,
They're almost finished with 47.
TDC, just to kind of give you an idea, in 2007, when TDC basically started, they collected $15,367 that year. In 2023, they collected $165,858. Just to give you an idea what that equates to, at roughly $35 a night, that means there was 55,286 overnight stays in Gilchrist County. This equals about 2.5 million in overnight revenues, but this does not include any revenues that may be spent with any of our businesses or any of that. So there is a lot of business that comes in from that as well. So,
Bobby, just a comment. Donna had showed me something the other day related to impact of tourism to our county, and around 20 million. I also saw the state had estimated that just for Blue Springs, and it was around 12 million. So somebody might be over or under there, but regardless, that money is supporting our small businesses, and the small businesses are providing jobs. So tourism definitely is an important part of our economy, along with agriculture, obviously, and there are others that we have here as well. But
you have to remember, these funds are just tied to overnight stay. So if there's an entry fee to come in the park and they don't have overnight stay, or most of their, it's not included in this. So that kind of tells you, this is just a small part of it here. Animal control, with the population growth, the demand has increased a lot for call loads. So far this year, there's been 573 animals passed through the shelter since October the 1st. But what you got to remember, that's not all their calls. A lot of calls can be solved in the field. A lot of times before you pick up an animal, you may have 2 or 3 calls trying to get the animal situated before you actually bring that animal in. There is a new truck in the budget to help support the number of calls and the staff. Animal control makes at least 2 trips a month to Orlando. We have an adoption agency there that takes a lot of our animals and they adopt them out. So they take the animals that are adoptable. They also have trips to Orlando and Gainesville where we get free food. We go pick it up, like busted bags of food at your Walmarts and different grocery stores. They bring that to a warehouse and they actually give it to us. So we go pick that up by the truckloads when it's available to save money as well. And then we have weekly trips to UF because we can use the UF vet school. We don't have to pay veterinary services unless we're in bind, and they do a lot of our neutering and spaying and that type. So we have a lot of different programs on there. Library, the average monthly patrons, and this is, you're probably going to say, I don't think that can be possible, but it actually is around 8,000 a month. They
Yeah,
had 400 and something.
Today, the parking lot at the
Wow.
church across from the library, it was slam packed too. So whatever they had going on today must have been
Well, I know we've got
I
some of
really
the best
thought so.
programs, and people from other counties come to our
oh yeah.
library for our programs we put on. I've had people in the surrounding counties say, oh yeah, we were in Gilchrist County, they had something going on in the library we went to. And I hear that from people as far away as Lake City and Columbia and Swanee and Dixie, so,
I've taken my granddaughter.
we do
and it's so
they do a
wonderful.
great job with the kids programs and different things up at the library.
You
So I
couldn't,
can-
there was
I
no
can
parking,
believe that.
I mean, people had to park in the church parking lot today. That field by the library was flat full too.
just to your programs, your different programs that she has, and most of these come in the summer. There's been 5,000 people attend those programs this year. We can't, Ms. Rhoda has done an excellent job with that library and a lot of the programs. So her and her staff, we definitely need to give them a lot of credit, as we do all of our county staff. Expansion of a library will be needed in the future. And there are grants for that, so we can look at. But I think the issue might be when you get ready to expand your library, I don't think you're gonna be able to do it there. You know, that might be a good administrative building of some type, but, I think because of wastewater retention and the different things you may run into, you may have to leave that location to do it. You may get the funding for it, but you're probably gonna need the property. So that's just something that, you know, you have some property here, whether you want to use it for that or not. You have a lot over here, turn that into like an administrative building or something, but I don't know what the future brings. Nobody's got a crystal ball. That's just some thoughts that have run through my mind. Hart Springs, over the past 5 years, Hart Springs has averaged a revenue of right at $104,000 a year. The park is self-supporting. The summer is always busier. The number of visitors from July 1, 2024 to July 17, 2024, that's a 17-day period, was 7,474. So most of the time on Saturday by 10:30, the park is closed just due to that. Hart Springs just received the notice of a grant. We haven't received the contract yet for the bank stabilization and boat parking along the river to adjoin the boardwalk. If anybody's been down to, I think it's Manatee, maybe, how they have the boat slips out at the end of the dock, that has been approved. So haven't received the grant, the contract, that of course have to come to the board first before anything can start or be done, but that was received. Grant projects, current staff is working on approximately 25 grants. And these grant funds are available to us, some that we are currently working on, that you've signed contracts on, and the total is $30 million. To kind of tell you where we're at with grants.
Now, can grant funding, when we receive grants, can part of the money that we receive in the grant go towards the personnel filling out the grant? I know in school, if you filled out a grant, I think 10% of the grant or a certain percentage of the grant could actually be given to the person who filled out the grant as part of their salary or part of a stipend for going after these grants. Is that possible with these grants or not?
Most all grants, not all of them, but most of your grants will have a 3 to 5% allowance for management of the grant by the county. So that can be spent on a firm if they're helping you with it. That can be spent, you know, on your staff, and then they allow you sometimes to use part of the grant funds for a firm and then have management fees of 3 to 5% for the county. Usually in that, it will have like 3 people that you calculate in that. So if you've got that just kind of tells you, yes. But to answer your question, yes, I think you would have enough grants that you can get, even though all of them may not give you this funding. The ones that do provide this funding would cover that, or be very, very close. They'll cover it.
Who's doing our grants right now?
Ryan.
Who?
Ryan. Clinton.
But he took that new position, the community paramedic.
He's trying to do both, but the community paramedic program is growing like crazy. So you're going to come down to where we need a community paramedic and we need a grant writer.
Right.
It has gotten to that point already. And as we go through the budget, there's some opioid funds that can go towards that community paramedic to help support those programs as well.
Like Fred Fox has done some of it in the past, right, Robert? Fred Fox out of St. Augustine.
He's done a few of our bird apps and our CDBGs, yes.
Bobby, you said 25 grants and 30 million? I missed some of that.
Yeah, 25 grants for a total of, we have approximately 25 grants for a total of $30 million.
Yeah.
That we're working on right now.
Yes.
I know,
Now, you haven't seen the contracts on all of them
Yeah.
yet, 'cause we're still in the early stages, but a lot of these, the money's there. We just gotta get the contracts and all that.
Mr. Romans or Newton One had mentioned over half of our budget is funded by federal state revenue, which is a big part of it is grant money, and which allows us to improve our county. Understand it's still taxpayer money. We want to make sure we're spending money that needs to be spent. But if it can build us a new building or pave us a road or buy us a vehicle, it's replacing something that's real old. It's basically setting us up for the future, I think. And so I think as much as we can maximize those grants, it just takes the burden off of all of us, because we're paying taxes. So,
And somebody's gonna get the grants. Might as well be us.
It's already been appropriated.
That's right. It's been appropriated, so we might as well get it.
As far as the pay increases or raises, none of those are in the budget. We have worked on that. We need to meet with each commissioner, and I would like to ask each commissioner to either reach out to me or, Ms. Moore to schedule a time, if we can, even as early as next week, so that we can go over what we came up with, so that you'll have a better idea of what we're talking about through the budget. The board side only, for your board departments only. What we looked at, we compared around 12 or 14 municipalities and counties. We looked at our 2006 wage study. We also, that was done by a professional company. We also used the inflation numbers. We looked at what people are having to advertise to hire people at now. We looked at a lot of things. We took those, added in some percentages for your time of employment, and with that, compared to our 2006 with inflation, our numbers are really close, really close. That is going to look to cost you around $160,000. Now, this $160,000 number includes all your taxes and withholding, and so that's in there. So that is not in your budget today, and that's just for your board. This will bring the county, we feel like, into a competitive pay range, and with other surrounding municipalities and counties as well too. So, if y'all could reach out to us, and we'll try to do that next week. I know Ms. Moore is also trying to prepare for open enrollment as well, but we'll try to make time to meet with each person and go into a little more detail on that. Just so you know, some of the things that happened this year, this one we're fine with. As of July 1st, 2024, if you have a salary employee, the minimum requirement salary went from $35,900 or something like that to $43,888. We're okay with that this year. But in July 1, 2025, your minimum salary for a salary employee is going to $58,656. So these are all, and I'm telling you these, because these are all.
You said 58,000?
58,656. You know, as we sit here today, a lot of what I'm giving you is, some of them are accomplishments we made that are great. Some of them are situations that we're facing in this budget. Some of them are factual situations that are coming up or challenges in the future. So as we budget, we got a budget for today, and we got a budget for the future as well. We got to take all of that into consideration, because as the county grows, and growth is here, it's not whether it's coming or not, or when it's coming, it's here. And we've got to provide these services, either provide them or not provide them. And I know we're limited. We got to provide what we can't afford. We can't provide what we can afford, but we've got to take these services seriously. And I know you do. I'm not saying you don't, but we have to. So I just wanted to kind of give you a state of, I call it state of the county, kind of where we're at. I'm sure I left something off. I may have went over something I didn't need to go over. You know, as doing this job for almost 13 years, and then I'll shut up here. A lot of things grow, a lot of things get here. A lot of things are on paper, but all of them don't make it to paper. So what I tried to do is give y'all as much as I could of what I see and what some of my staff has seen and where this county is heading to. And whoever it sets on these boards today, in the future, whenever that may be, you know, it's coming. And I will tell you, I feel wholeheartedly, we've talked internally as we've prepared these budgets, when interest rates go down again, and they will go down, you're gonna see people building houses in Gilchrist County. When they drop to 3%, they will start back building instead of 7% or 6.5%. It's gonna come again. Our little community is growing, and I'm not sure how we stop that, so. But, you know, I just felt it, like I said, I felt it was important to give you these points. I'm sorry I took way longer than I meant to. I thought I could do this in 15 minutes, but.
That was good information.
But, you know, all I want is a bright future for the county. I may not be working for the county, but I plan to live in this county. I plan to stay active in this county. And, and, you know, I pray every day that whatever is best will happen for this county, and that we'll continue to have in God we trust. We'll continue to have prayers before our meeting. We'll continue to have our pledge of allegiance before our meeting. And we'll continue to have people like that lady who came up this past week and just stood up in a public comment and wanted to have prayer for us. I think that speaks volumes for this community. So thank you, and I'm sorry. I do have to leave at 6, so I probably have just derailed our getting a lot of budget stuff.
Yeah. Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you very much.
You know, when that tourist tax, bed tax, whatever you want to call it, when it was first put on the ballot, it was projected by the state to bring in $7,000. The first year, it brought in 21,000. So it was 3 times what they projected. And now it's up to 165. That's a lot of people spending the night in Gilchrist County.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Todd?
Ready for me? All right, so we're gonna start out on page 2 of your budget workshop handout. And I just have some general comments that we got from the UCF Institute for Economic Forecasting. This is their projections for kind of where we're at and where we're going. Their opinion is Florida is well positioned to weather a national recession. These are their points. It says if a prediction of a national economic storm come to fruition, the state is well prepared to weather it. The recessions of 2008 to 2009 and 2020 would be considered Category 5 downturns in the state's economy. They believe this potential recession coming will be more like a tropical depression. So they're predicting a recession's coming. They're predicting for Florida. Hopefully, we're going to be able to weather it well. So the expansion is expected to be fueled by a hot labor market and continued population growth. From 24 to 27, Florida's economy, so the next 3 years, as measured by the real gross state product, will expand at an average annual rate of 2.4%. They predict that the real gross state product will decelerate during the economic slowdown, as growth will slow to 3.4% this year and next year, and decelerate to 2.1% by 2026 and ease to 1.9% in 2027. They're expecting payroll job growth will begin to slow gradually. If the economy stays at full employment, year-over-year growth was 5.7% in 2022. Payroll employment was up 3.3% last year, and it's contracted to 2.3% this year. They believe it's going to further decelerate to almost flat in 2027 at 0.6%. What does that mean to us? Potentially it affects our future state shared revenues and future appropriations. I mean, if you do start to see things slow down, as they indicate, almost to a payroll job growth to a halt by 2027. So that just means that most likely you're going to start to see revenues from the state slow.
Decrease also.
And decrease. So something to be aware of. They did indicate that the job growth for state and local governments does have an expected growth of 1.4% for the next 3 years. So they are anticipating, growth within local governments. Going to the next page, the unemployment rate fell to 2.9% in 2023. The slowing U.S. economy, they believe, will push the rate higher, as unemployment rates should rise to 3.2% this year, 3.5% next year, and settling to 3.8% in 2027. In a minute, I'm going to tell you where Gilchrist County is at in comparison to Florida. Housing starts were almost 194,000 in 2022 before higher mortgage rates, and worries about the slowing economy started the deceleration that will slow housing starts to around 169,000 for the state in 2027. Going to the next slide. According to the Florida scorecard, which is put out by the Florida Chamber of Commerce, they believe that the net new jobs needed in Gilchrist County by the year 2030 is almost 1,300. Our current population is just under 19,000, with an expected population range by 2030 between 20,600 and 23,000. The charts below you see is our unemployment rate. Our unemployment rate currently is at 3.5%, which is a little bit higher than the state of Florida. And as you can see, over the last year, our unemployment rate has gradually increased. It's come down a little bit over the last couple months, but it stayed fairly steady in that 3% range. And as you can see, what housing permits have done over time, that's from 2011. We've just seen a general increase over time of housing permits with a big spike over the last number of years.
Don't some people think that our actual number is much more than 18,000? That's closer to 20,000 already?
Yeah, I mean, I personally,
I think so.
it's hard for me to understand how we're not, but
I mean, when you look at the new houses put in, unless there's one person moving in every new house, we're more than 18,000.
correct.
But we can't seem to get the University of Florida's math to work out that way.
No, and we have attempted, and I personally, I think our next number that comes out in the spring, I believe it's going to have to be a fair amount higher than it is today. I don't know how. We did see an increase this year, but it was fairly slight. It was around 250. So.
I also disagree with the unemployment rate. I think the unemployment rate's zero. But if you want a job, you can find one. It may not be the one you're looking for, it may not be the pay you're looking for, but there's not a business in town or in the county just about don't have a hiring sign. So if you're looking for a job, you can find one.
Yep.
Page 5 kind of gives you the mixed metrics for Gilchrist County. And I say mixed because the green numbers are numbers that are improving, the red numbers are numbers that are getting worse, and the gray numbers are numbers that are kind of flat. And so as you can see, we have a mixture of green and red. The number of open jobs is actually declining, which means that people are hiring. The number of job changes is actually going up, though. Children in poverty is decreasing, which is good. Reading scores are going up. Unemployed persons are declining. Flipping over to the other page, you see our unemployment rate at 3.5%, as I mentioned, which is slightly higher than the state overall. Poverty rate is getting worse in Gilchrist County, according to this. But our sales tax revenue is increasing, our housing permits are increasing. So again, it's kind of a mixed metrics. We have some things that are improving, we have some things that are of concern. So moving on to ad valorem, if you flip to page 7, on page 8, there's actually a chart that basically shows your tax roll since 2007. And these are the taxes that would be collected during fiscal year 2008. It shows you the Great Recession, which began in December of 2007. That recession continued until the third quarter of 2009. It was deep and took a long time to recover. The gross taxable value was $701.4 million in 2007, and the value declined to a low of $576.3 million in 2013. It's a 6-year decline. The value decreased 14.9%. During that time, we did have new construction, which averaged about $13 million from 2007 to 2013. But the current real property value experienced the greatest decline, which was a decline of over 24%. Personal property did increase from 2007 to 24 by 241%. And real property values did turn around and begin to increase, and they are currently 55% higher than in 2007. The gross taxable value reflects a $603 million increase due to new construction, with the remaining increase from rising values. So we have seen a $600,000 increase in values since 2007. So that is what the graph on page 8 does show you. The graph on page 9 reflects the changes in history of the ad valorem over that time, that same period. As you can see, in 2008, we generated $5.6 million in ad valorem. That continued to decline all the way to 2013, and started declining from 2013 until now. At our current proposed millage rate, which is our current rate of 8.7, that's going to generate around $11.7 million in ad valorem. On page 10, you see the difference between the new construction added each year. The blue is your gross taxable value, whereas your orange is your current year adjusted taxable value. So the blue shows you where your increases in new construction come in every year.
You're gonna have a graph that shows the past few years, kind of Mr. Smith's suggestion and point. I think we all agree we wanna keep taxes down, and we have lowered the millage the last 3 years. I think it was 9.5 maybe 3 years ago.
I do have a chart
You have
coming
some?
up that'll
Okay.
go through that. So on your next page, on page 11, you'll see your budget recap. For this year, the budget book does show a proposed budget, $54,800,000 and almost $3,000. This is a decline from our last year's budget, which was $60,584,000. So this budget request is about $6 million, almost $6 million less than our last. A good part of that is the jail. So we'll start looking at the fund balance. So page 12,
And hold on a minute, so on page 11, this is based on 8.7 mils.
correct.
Okay,
That is correct.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So fund balance, this is our fund balance policy. As most of you are aware, our current policy does require us to have a minimum of 25% of our expenditures, our budgeted expenditures. We typically do also put an additional 5% to help cover if there's any kind of an issue with any of the other departments. We don't typically do any additional on the other because we feel that general is there to help cover those additional.
Well, each department has their own too.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So looking at the general fund, our current projected revenues at the 8.7 millage rate would be $30,219,000 with expenditures of $28,493,000. That would generate a positive, that would add to your fund balance. However, we do have some transfers that we're going to have to consider. We currently have budgeted a little over $4 million to do capital improvements as well as for the jail debt service. That's $3.5 million that Mr. Crosby mentioned earlier for a solid waste project, and the rest is to cover debt expenditures. We have budgeted here a transfer of almost $2 million. Part of that is to fire and part of that is to the road department. And I'll discuss those when I get to each one of those as well. So with that, you would have a net decrease of almost $4.3 million to your fund balance. If everything was, basically if you just said, hey, let's go with what you've got and we stopped here, that's what you'd be looking at, is a reduction of $4.3
4
million.
million. And that's including, like you said, doing the capital improvements also?
It is.
Okay. That would be a decrease.
Yes, so with all of the transfers, your total expenditures from general would be 34 million, right at 517,000. So our projected fund balance at the end of this year is 16,228,000. Our fund balance policy requirement is 8,547,000. And that would leave you end of next year, just under $12 million in fund balance.
So Todd, can I ask, last year, I think we ended up using, I can't remember the exact number, but maybe 3 million of the fund balance to fund this year's budget because,
Actually, it was quite a bit less, actually.
Oh, okay.
We funded 600,000 for road department,
Okay.
125,000 for fire, and 350,000 for solid waste.
okay, but we lowered the millage rate last year with the idea and the goal of keeping taxes down, but we used some of the fund balance
We did.
to be able to accomplish that. Do you have, I know you're getting to rollback rate, which is 7.84.
Yeah.
Do you have a similar sheet like this using the rollback rate?
I do not, and I mean, we can look at that for our next budget workshop.
Okay,
I can tell you, it would definitely not be my recommendation.
okay,
You know, with the concerns that we have, you know, when we start talking about the increases in pay, there are lots of things in that list of things that was just discussed that have big ticket items. You know, why do you have fund balance? You know, the reason you have a fund balance is to pay for future capital expenditures that you know are coming. It's to weather the storm if you have a major catastrophe. It's to pay for your expenses before revenues start coming in. You may recall in November of this past year, our budget recap. You may not. I'll give you a recap. Our general fund through November 2nd, so this is October 1st to November 2nd, we had right at $5 million in expenses. We had revenues at that point of $276,000. So if you don't have
fund balance,
if you don't have fund
we'd have
balance,
been in
what are you
trouble.
doing? You're borrowing money. And some commissioners up here have experienced that. They've lived that where we don't have the money to fund the beginning of our fiscal year, you know?
And
And
you have to borrow money, and with interest rates the way they are right now, they get very expensive to borrow money.
Last time I was on the board, any equipment we bought, we had to bid it out, and then we had to finance it for 5 years or whatever, and pay interest. I sat down and talked to Richard about this, and I can see the reason that you're at where you're at. Simply for the fact, 138 is gonna be, what, a $6 million project? Okay, the state makes us pay that up front.
yes,
So if we didn't have that money, we
You're
would
not
go
doing it.
borrow it, we would pay the interest, we would pave the road,
yes.
and then they would reimburse us later on, but we're gonna pay the interest on that $6 million in the meantime.
Correct.
If we have a fund balance and we can write a check for $6 million to pay that bill, there is no interest.
Right.
And with your fund balance, it's drawing interest while they're paving the road. So there's a win-win either way. I understand, not overtaxing people. I pay taxes myself. I'd love for it to be zero. But, I also understand your philosophy and Richard's philosophy about why we have what we have and the way we do things, the way we do things. Can we adjust it? We probably can. But then again, as Bobby pointed out, we gotta look in the future. If we've gotta have a bigger here and a bigger there, with our growth rate and everything going on, we gotta look where somewhere down the road. We shouldn't have to go borrow millions and millions of dollars to build a building if we play our marbles right, and this need comes up or this mandate comes up, and we gotta have it, then we've got it. And it saves us a pile of money on bidding and borrowing and everything else. So
Absolutely.
I went through that time when we borrowed just about for everything. We bought a bulldozer, we bought a trackhoe, we bought this, we bought that, and we financed it for 5 years, every time, 3 years, 5 years, every time.
I'll give you an idea. Active projects, active grant projects that you're fixing to start on, that you're fixing to start having to write checks for, is between 9.5 and $10 million.
Which one's that?
Project. You got multiple projects fixing to start, grant projects.
Okay.
You're gonna get refunded.
Yeah.
But you've got to start writing those checks probably some of these are gonna start within 30 days or less, that you're gonna start writing checks for. So at any given time, out of that $9 to $10 million, you may have $4 or $5 million that you're waiting to get.
And what if we didn't have a checking account to cover that?
Well, you hope you got the borrowing power, but right now, you're gonna be paying probably even at the county's rate, 6%.
Yeah, and that's the challenge, you know, the more you have to borrow right now with
And
the
6%
rates,
at-
with the rates going up, the more expense that we're paying. You know, I think, I mean, most of this board knows, I mean, there's times to borrow. I mean, I've recommended borrowing for many, many things.
Yeah.
There's also a time when you need to utilize what you have. And so, I mean, I think that you have to look at the current environment and what the future environment looks like to determine, you know,
Well,
what should we be doing?
When we bid out our borrowing rates before, they were like 1.5%, 1.2%, maybe as high as 2%, but now you're talking
7%.
6.57%.
The other factor in
On
this,
millions and millions of dollars, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of
when you
money.
talk about fund balance, you know, when you do go out to borrow money, if you have no fund balance, you know, from a personal perspective, you know, if you go to your bank and you have no money and you want to borrow a little money, they're either going to say no, or they're going to say, this is your rate, you know, whereas if you have some funds available, you know, if you have assets, you know, your rates are going to be more affordable.
Yeah.
You know, as a municipality, I mean, it's the same thing. As a county, if we don't have the ability, you know, if they look at our current financial situation and they think it looks bleak, they're going to be less interested in loaning to us. They're also going to be less interested in giving us a good rate. You know, if you're in desperate need, they're going to raise your rates because they're taking more risk. You know, so most people think, you know, well, you're loaning to a government, you have no risk. Well, there's risks involved. You know, they have to, you know, balance the risks with that as well. You know, looking at our fund balance, you know, we would not have been able to build the jail and fund 6 million of that project without having fund balance. You know, if we had not been preparing for the future and saving in fund balance, we would not have the funds available, and we would have been borrowing $10.6 million and having to basically pay that for the next 20 years. You know, we struggled to try and figure out how do we, you know, fund the jail when, you know, it was just costing us the difference in, you know, what we're paying within the detention. And when you look at, if you had to add another $6 million to that and the additional staffing that was required, the project may have been dead in the water, and we'd still be dealing with the problem that we don't have a jail that's sufficient.
And I know on this one page, on page 14, you have it at 8.7, but, and I know you have what if, the 9 and 8.9 and 8.5, but if you could like, maybe at the next meeting, like, what if it was like 8.3, 8.4, 8.5, 8.6, what would it be, you know, what would the difference be? Like how much would you take out of fund balance?
It's between each one. Yeah, if you figure out what 0.1% equals, it would just decrease by that amount each 0.1 you take away. Right. So, and it'd be the same thing.
Okay, so moving on to page 13, our budgeted state revenues for 24 versus 25. So we're still pending the communication services tax from the Florida EDR. We're also pending all transportation gas tax revenues. At this point, they've only indicated that we will have them between now and sometime in August. So hopefully, as soon as we get those, we'll know. I was very shocked at our numbers that we received from the state. I was anticipating similar increases as what we saw last year. And so far, the numbers we have received, we saw an increase of $28,600.
Todd, what's going on with fiscally constrained? Why is that just the legislature don't think that's as important, or what?
Yeah.
Fiscally constrained is continuing to go down. I believe it's based on population and valuation. I believe that's the formula they use.
Okay.
And so it continues to go down as
More
things
people you
change.
get, they expect you to collect more.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, you know, again, you know, we depend on, you know, these state revenues. Without, you know, these revenues, we couldn't fully fund our county government. But as you can see, things are pretty good right now. Like looking at the revenues that we've been seeing statewide revenues are strong. And the only thing I can tell you is that our population increase did not keep pace with the average for the entire state. And I think that's the reason that you see this very minuscule increase, is because we did see about a 2% increase in population, but I believe the state saw about a 4.5% increase overall. So our average increase, kept us in the, similar territory, but it didn't, give us the type of increase that we saw last year. So I was pretty disappointed when we saw those numbers, and we'll provide the rest when we get them. Moving on to page 14, your gross taxable value for 2023 was $1,138,000,000. Your gross taxable value for 2024 is $1,304,677,000. That's an increase of right at $166.5 million. So at the 8.7 stated rate, that does provide an increase in ad valorem revenue of $1,449,000. Your rollback rate would be 7.8466, and that would provide an increase of about $334,000. So if you were to go to rollback, you're talking about a reduction of a little over $1.1 million. Page 15, this is a history of your millage rate and what was budgeted and received over the past number of years. So in 2016, all the way to 2020, we had a millage rate at 9.5 mils. So we were close to the max of 10 mils. In 2016, we budgeted right at $5.7 million. We received $5.5 million. And as you can see, going down to our current year, that rate went from 9.5 to 9.4 to 9.3 to 9.0. And then the past 2 years, we've been at 8.7 mils. This past year, we budgeted $9.9 million at 8.7. This year, we would budget 11.35 if we were to stick with 8.7.
What causes the budget and receive, what makes the difference as far as something uncollectible?
Yes. Page 16, this is just your term compliance option for the general fund. Again, I've already stated this, but if you go with the requested budget millage rate of 8.7 mils, proceeds are 11.35. If you go to the rollback of 7.8466, your proceeds are $10,237,000, which is a decrease of $1,113,412. So let's look at the history of our general fund balance. Going back to 2020, we had a fund balance of just over $11 million. You can see the transition of our fund balance over time. This current year that we're in, we're anticipating that to get to around $17 million. And this year, again, if we were to go with every revenue as it's stated and every expenditure as it's stated, that would bring your fund balance down to around $13 million, which is a change of just over $3.7 million. As a note, 2025 does include a transfer to the road department of $1,659,000, a transfer to fire of $314,000, and a transfer to capital of $4,050,000.
But it does not cover any raises that we happen to give this year.
Does not cover any raises at this point. It also, as Mr. Crosby mentioned earlier, it does not include any additional road improvements other than what's, state funded. There's been lots of discussion about that. This budget does not include Spring Ridge.
Does it include for the health insurance increase and the?
That's actually a little mixed. It does include the health increase for the board.
Okay.
It does include it for my budget. As I was going through the constitutional's numbers, I think there's some, I think we're gonna have to see when they come up, each one.
Okay.
Because I did speak, had a meeting yesterday with, the sheriff. Their budget, their original budget does not include the increase. So that will be a reflection that will have to be taken into account as well.
And the overall increase from we expect from insurance is how much?
The percentage is 8.9%.
9%.
It's about $700 and something per employee per year. All right, moving on to page 20, retirement contributions. This is normally a really big deal. Fortunately, this year it is not a very big deal. We see a slight increase in regular, it's a 0.44 increase, a slight increase in special risk, no increase in elected, no increase in senior management, and a decrease in job. So that's always good news. And pretty rare to be able to say, so.
Yeah.
The next page actually shows what the new rates will be. So you can see those reflected there, and that is what we calculated everything on. With that, I think we have the supervisor of elections here that would like to present her budget.
And you'll let us know what page in the big book
You're gonna
each time?
find her, this is actually one of the pages that you added, page 117A.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good morning, Dawn.
Supervisor of election. Basically mine is only increased due to contracts going up. You are gonna get a new supervisor of election, so all office supplies is gonna have to be changed to the name, so we have increase in that. And I did put the increase in the salary for mine, not the employees. So, I did go up on poll workers because we have to increase their salary $1 an hour this year as well. And we're gonna have a special election that's gonna have to be held, so it'll be in next budget year.
So you said you did include salary increase?
Not for the girls. No, I did in my poll workers.
Because you're gonna wait and see what, okay, you're gonna wait and see what's recommended.
Yes, gotta wait and see what y'all go with on that. I'm really not sure. We just did a percentage on mine.
That's mandated by the state,
That's
right?
mandated by state, but we did put some in there, so if it needs to be adjusted, we'll do that later.
And do you have increase in insurance or not? The
I don't
percent,
think we increased in the insurance.
okay.
I think that, if we didn't, we're not sure on that one yet either. We didn't know at that time that we was in the budget. But it's about $37,000 increase. That's mainly what I had to have. Contracts and stuff going up. Gotta keep my little election workers happy, gotta pay them, and then like I said, there'll be another, an election in November, that'll come out of that budget, and then we're gonna have a special election. For the vacancy of the school board member.
Will the?
Oh, I thought, so they're not gonna,
They will appoint until they have the election, and then that person will have to go through an election, whoever, I mean, if they wanna run, whoever they appoint, you'll have to have an
so
election.
that's gonna be for next year?
Well, they talked about doing it in November, but I don't think we're gonna have time to hold qualifying and all that for them to be able to run. So they'll appoint, we're trying to get it moved to the first of the year, so the new supervisor will have to conduct their first election in January, hopefully.
Okay.
Or January, February, because you gotta get them time to qualify, so.
Will the,
It's a period longer than 28 months when this resignation got in.
will the new supervisor of election make the same thing you're currently making, or do they start at a lower rate since it's their first year?
No, it'll be at the
Same.
time,
They'll start
whatever
at the
it's
same
by-
rate
yeah,
of salary?
Yeah, yeah.
So you're not based on
It's
years
by-
of
it's paid by
experience, you're just,
statute.
this is what the supervisor
Yeah.
of election
The
gets?
new supervisor. will
Yeah,
be
and
on
I
that
know it's
salary.
decided by the state, I didn't know if there was a
Yeah.
rolling rate that new ones
No.
got versus experienced ones, so.
No,
So there is no raise for experience.
no.
When you hold an election for the city of Trenton or town of Bell, do they compensate you, or you just, that's
We
part of your
just bill
job?
them for what we have to expend. If we buy their ballots, and we don't charge them anything to do their elections, we've just always done it. So whatever it costs us to have the ballots prepared, and then they normally pay for their little election workers. But no, we don't charge them anything to do it.
Kind of tradition.
It just stays that way. They're
Okay.
part of the county, so we
That's
just,
right.
we just.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, we didn't charge them anything. And I think, it'll continue on. We'll just continue helping them the way we
Yeah.
always have in the
I
past.
don't have no problem.
Because they are our county.
Yes.
Questions?
Thank you, Donnie.
Well, congratulations on your upcoming retirement.
Yay, this is my last
I
year.
hope that means you're just retiring from supervisor election, but you're gonna stay involved in the county with us.
I will, yes, I
And,
am. Don't plan on
you can
going
see you at
anywhere.
all the events and stuff.
Yes,
You just won't have people asking you questions about the
no
election.
more election operations,
Going to the beach or fishing or doing something fun.
whatever.
All over.
Helping raise a grandson,
There you go.
take care of him.
Grandsons are
Well, thank
important.
you for your service
Yes.
these years, Ms. Sanchez, we
It's
appreciate
been
you.
fun,
Your
Yeah.
Now
office,
it's getting
your
to be
office
work.
has been fantastic. It
Yeah.
really has.
and hopefully it'll continue
It's
on.
always, you've always had friendly people and you've always been helpful and
Job well done.
we appreciate everything you've done.
We appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chair, if I could, if we could move to page 35 in our handout and page 50 in your book.
35.
The health department's been sitting here patiently listening to
All right.
all of our situation
Our
and,
health department does a great job. Let's go ahead
Yes,
and
they do.
move right on to them then, so.
Good to see everyone. We're here before you to ask for the same amount as last year, no increase, no decrease. In health department events, I'm happy to tell you, we have a dentist on board full-time. She's 3 days here right now, 2 days in Dixie, and she'll just see every patient she can. She's wonderful. She's a public health art. We'll probably meet her at special events too, if we take our mobile bus out on the road. We're in the process of developing a calendar where we go to specific spots once a month, so people can start counting on us doing that. And, otherwise, we are working with CMS for the community care medicine program, and trying to be supportive in that, and however we can, and we'll be at the heart, and doing some back to school stuff.
All right, well, we all always do a great job. We're blessed to have you and been able to keep your budget the same for the last 3 years means y'all are doing a great job up there and we appreciate it. And so thank you very much.
Yep,
I
thank
have
you.
a quick question. Yeah, I have a quick one. Just the status on the utilization of the former Trenton City Hall. Are we moving forward with that?
You want me to answer? Or do you want, I don't mind.
Is that a bad question? And maybe, maybe you shouldn't have asked that. I don't know.
We're working on it together, but I may have just a little bit more because the grant's on our side.
Yeah,
One
because
of-
it's kind of been lingering for a year or so.
Well, and some of that's because of the grant process, but one of the current grants that just came out through HMPG, which is through emergency management, will help provide and harden that building to be the way it has to be. So all that is currently submitted and being reviewed. The funding has actually already been approved for the county. The project just has to meet their criteria and be approved.
And that's under those Paul stressing plans that.
Yes,
yeah.
yes, and we had to change that a little bit just because of the requirements of the HMPG at the top of the grant. But that is looking, that's looking good. The holdup, the big problem is there's a lot of money that comes out of a lot of time, and all of a sudden, everybody sends all these grants, or it's already said how much you're gonna get in your county. But they've got all these to review at one time and send them back and forth, but it is
That's
coming
great.
along well. So it's about $500,000, is that correct? I think it's around $500,000, so.
We're excited.
And I
We're
wasn't
excited
trying to,
for
I
you.
wasn't trying to
We're
keep her
anxious.
from answering, but there's a few things that happened in the last week or two she hadn't got brought up to speed on yet, so.
You don't see an increase in utilities or insurance? I mean, it's been the same for 2-3 years now.
Well, I understand we pay electricity, and we try very hard to keep our employees from having accidents, so the life insurance doesn't go up. And
I mean, I'm saying hallelujah, but I just, kind of rare.
we're fine, we're fine.
We appreciate everything you do.
Yeah.
What percentage does the county contribute, I guess, of the,
To
I
our
don't know.
total budget,
I know the state basically is taking the main share of what you provide to us, and we appreciate that.
the state sends us 1 million. and then
Okay.
the 83. I don't have to, I didn't bring the
That,
whole budget.
that's okay. I just know it's a lot bigger percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Sorry.
How about, cause they'll go a little bit quicker, why don't we do, emergency management and code in either order, whichever you come to first, and then we'll do fire and EMS.
All right, you want code enforcement?
Code
fine.
enforcement, which is page 40 in your book,
40. 40 in the handout?
in the handout.
Page 32 in your handout.
Okay, that's 32 in the handout. 32 in the handout
Yeah, 40 in your book.
and 40 in your book.
You're looking at 32.
Oh, 32, excuse me, there's two page numbers on there. Yeah, 32 and 40. Let me just find- okay.
Jennifer?
32 and 40, that's why I looked at 40.
I can't really give any, anything for this year, cause I just started, I really don't know what to expect for, from year or what was from last year.
Well, we do have a little bit of an increase in the budget, but most of that's coming from health insurance and retirement. The budget's $83,108 this year. As you can see, most everything in there is kept to a pretty good minimum.
Yeah, it looks like
to
everything about
operate
stayed the
that.
same almost.
Yeah, there's a lot that really does go on in, code enforcement, and a lot of activity, but we have been able to maintain the budget pretty close to what we originally started. So,
Jennifer, we appreciate you taking on this challenge
That's
and
right.
the good job you're doing.
Next year, you'll be an expert at this.
Hopefully.
And you got the email that I sent you about the parking thing? They said, thank you, it's
Yes,
resolved.
ma'am, I
Yeah.
did. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I want to make sure you saw it.
Yes.
They were pleased.
Yes, ma'am.
That was, yeah.
Questions?
Won't
Thank
be
you.
long.
Thank
Be
you.
long, you'll find out what people think of you.
Well, she has a hearing.
Go ahead and do emergency management.
I don't think we have them on the list. They do.
Oh, okay.
No?
I saw him here, so.
Are you on the list today? Oh, you're not? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
You want to be on the list? Put him on that. Put him on the list.
Well, what we can do, I'm probably gonna wind up doing the, community development. We can do it before or after fire and detention and correction. Or detention and correction is pretty easy. Y'all can do it without me probably, but we can, if y'all wanna do fire first or you wanna do community development.
Just go ahead and do the ones you need to do so that if we get in the bind, you're not having to stick around.
We can look at community development. I'm not sure what page it's
It's
on.
on page, it's the next page, 33, and then page 39 in your book.
And,
Community development, actually, the budget went down this year. On this one, we did have a little bit of decrease in the salaries, the way with some changes that were made. And, of course, that reduced the retirement contribution, but however, the people count's the same, so our insurance went up some, but the overall, we do have a deduction, in that budget this year.
Is this page 39 in the big book?
Yes, ma'am.
So then professional services, then why did it go up 20,000?
Because now we're using,
North
North
Florida
Florida
professional.
professionals
Okay,
for our services, so we have to, now, and the good thing about that is though, because y'all passed a matching charge for those, we have a revenue for those as well too.
Yeah, so that $35,000 increase is actually flat.
Actually gonna be,
Yeah, it should be a wash.
right, it
Okay.
could be a wash. Okay.
so I think everything else then got stayed the same except the road materials, yeah.
Kind of the same thing with road materials and
Yeah.
signs, you know, if you budget for signs, if you sell them, you get the revenue to cover the expense. So,
And we just increased it because when you're building more homes, you're buying more signs. But we didn't get a revenue for that.
Okay.
Mm.
All right, would y'all like to go to next?
Would you like to go ahead and just turn one page and do,
Detention and
in the big book, it's page 38. I'm not sure what detention and corrections, page 34.
34.
Yeah.
Page
Mr.
30.
Newton and I, we both kind of work on this budget. Well, all of us do in the finance. This budget stayed the same. If you look at it, you'll notice that the inmate detention services reduced, but inmate hospital increased. And what we look at each year is kind of how we spend the money. And sometimes it can go down or up, but we just sort of follow the trend of how the money gets spent. But overall, it's a dollar for dollar budget.
Can we do the opioid mitigation, just keep it right in road? The next phase.
It's 36 in your handout and 137 in your book.
So this is the money we're getting from that lawsuit?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's all covered, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's money we
Yes.
received.
This is
that
gonna
we
pay
have-
for our, community paramedic salary?
Well, it's funds that are available to utilize with the program.
I thought we had a grant for that community paramedic.
There
We-
is,
There is some small grant funding for it, but it sort of goes away, and some of the reason that's going away is the grant kicked off the programs, and the opioid mitigation fund now is the money that they're giving us to take the place of the grant to run the program.
How long how many years will we be getting this, these funds for the,
18 years.
18 years we'll get this?
Yeah, you get them for 18 years. It is a declining revenue, but it's basically what we're getting this
Wow.
year is almost exactly what you're gonna get for the next 18 years.
Wow,
But
that's
it
awesome.
is slightly declining, but we did receive a schedule. And this is the
Dang,
amount that we
that's
got this
good.
year.
So in the community paramedic budget, in their budget, does it reflect that we're using these funds or it doesn't reflect?
Community
reflect that?
paramedic will be in your EMS budget, and these funds will be transferred
To
to
EMS,
as.
Okay.
revenue. Yeah. Is that correct, Mr. Romans?
And you may recall, earlier this year, we spent around a little over $100,000 of these funds in order to purchase capital items, equipment. And like, we had a short period of time to spend the money, and we had some needs to help kind of get the program, continually going. So that's what it was used for this year. Yeah.
Soil and water, the next page.
Soil and water is page 44 in your book.
they stayed the same, well, went up $100.
And this is mostly pass-through money from the Department of Agriculture, right?
It is.
It is, we pay, of the, clerical person in the office, we pay 50% of their salary, and, then they pay the remaining expenses. Now, we do process their payroll, and, we're reimbursed. They use our fuel island, we're reimbursed. We do title the vehicles in the county's name with tags and insurance, but they buy the vehicles. And then a lot of times after 5 years, if they replace the vehicles, then they give us those vehicles and we're able to replace those.
So what's our part approximately?
$40,000.
How much?
40.
Question, why is the numbers the same, but the number at the end's different by $100? You got 300. 21,685. Oh, 21,635. Okay, sorry, that's why I need my better glasses.
Yeah, I
Okay.
understand. I can relate to that.
Didn't see the 3 and the 8 had changed.
The insurance,
Trying to figure out where that money come from.
the insurance went up some, but there were some items they never used that we were able to delete.
So that, probably most people know, but this, provides technicians that work with farmers to help implement best management practices, save and protect water. I went to their meeting the other night, and they are planning on, Bobby, unless something changed, a used truck, giving it to the county to use. So that would, I don't know what the value is, but it's fairly new, I think, but it's over 5 years old, so that'll be a benefit back to us as well.
They also work with the farmers on their irrigation system, so they don't spray over onto the road and into the ditches and stuff like that. So I know
They do soil samples.
they do, they do a lot for the farmers in the community.
They work with schools too.
Yep, yeah, they do. They help us with our, our speech and our, legislative contest, so. They do a lot for us, so.
The next one is, if you want to go ahead and do it, is E911, which is page 38 in your handout, 154 in your book. If you look at this, you'll notice there's no salaries because there's none in here. Wouldn't be any out, but we do have an increase from 416 to 475. But the reason we do, this department is solely funded by grants and surcharge funds that must be spent within this budget. So we can't move them anywhere else or anything. We are able to transfer like 30,000 out to general. There are a few things that it can help us with, but that part we can to help general. But these funds are required to stay here. Actually, if we don't expend a certain amount of these funds each year, we are required to send it back, and then they distribute it into the other counties. So
It's 100% grant.
yes, and we're moving as much as you can move. 30,000.
Okay.
Yeah, at current.
Fully charged battery, fully charged. Unplugged charger.
Thank you.
That's a smart.
That's a smart.
That's a
uh,
smart
I've never heard
smartphone.
that
Sure.
before. The fully charged.
All right.
I need one of those I can plug into me.
Karen, you can delete that out, man. If not, it was Bill's phone, not me.
Yeah, right.
I was wondering if you had hooked that for the phone.
Oh, gosh.
All right,
Mr.
so,
Mr. Newton, this is probably my error. I'll take the blame for it. It's fine. Well, Chief is prepared to discuss the fire.
Okay.
But he didn't realize the EMS was gonna be on there.
Okay.
I mean, would it be okay to do the fire tonight and then we move the EMS to the next meeting, or would that be acceptable?
yeah.
Is that fine with you, Chief? Okay, I'd rather you have your other dog. Okay, so if that's okay.
So what page are we on?
If we could start on page 24 of your slides, your
24.
handout. And then in your
You're
book, you're
fund
gonna be on
balance on
page
first.
129 and 130.
29.
What page in your,
24 in your,
In your
Twenty-four in the handouts and, 129 and 130. If we could, real quick, just review the fire fund balance. As you can see, in 2020, we had a fund balance of just over 488,000. That did grow to 770,000 in 22. This last year, not the current year that we're in, but last year, you may recall, is when we switched to the 50/50 due to the study. And we did see a decline in our fund balance to around 489,000. This current year, we're anticipating a potential change in fund balance of around $250,000. Based on the revenues and expenditures, we would anticipate fund balance to be right at the fund balance requirement, which would be $291,000. You would see if all revenues came in, all expenditures went out, you'd see an increase of about $53,000. This year, based on our request, the revenues does include a $314,000 transfer from the general fund, which is an increase from last year of 125.
so that's gonna come out of fund balance, that 314,000?
Yes, ma'am.
So that's gonna go to, from fund
That's
balance.
the-
yeah.
So this is our fire
coming out of
assessment money that we collect.
No, this is, well, it's your fire assessment money with an addition of 314,000
Coming out of fund balance.
transferring from the general
Right,
to help supplement.
right, okay. We don't bring in enough to pay for it on its own. We have to, okay.
And one thing that's not in this budget, that we spoke about, but I just want to say, if you were to consider, or you start looking towards, which the county's gonna have to, adding that additional 24/7 response unit,
Yeah.
you've got to add roughly $300,000 worth of cost to this budget, which means another $300,000 transfer from the general fund.
Okay, and
Or-
that's to add it.
Well, I mean, what it means is that the fire assessment is gonna have to be evaluated.
Yeah.
You're going to have to increase it if you do something like that. There's no way that the general, Mr. Smith, Stony Smith was, talking about our excessive fund balance. These are the issues. These are the things that we can do it today. You can't do it forever.
Mhm.
When you use fund balance to purchase capital projects, it's, in essence, a one-time expense.
Right.
It's not something that you have to continually fund year after year. When you start talking about, like adding a rescue unit and funding it from fund balance, every year that expense is there. Every year you're drawing from fund balance. And while we do have fund balance to cover some things, we can't do this forever. You're looking at it right now.
You don't
just-
want reoccurring costs coming out of the fund balance. The
Exactly.
fund balance is to cover those things that are an emergency, one time, let's get it taken care of, but we've gotta have revenue to cover the programs we've got.
If it's gonna cost us $300,000, it's not gonna all come from fire, wouldn't like half come from EMS and the other?
That is half.
That is the half.
It's 600,000 total.
Okay,
300,000 would be half,
so it's 600,000 total.
yes, ma'am. But again, that would be split between 50/50 fire and EMS.
So if you wanted to put that damage on, you'd be best to leave the millage rate at 8%. Current millage rate.
James, I know we've discussed this before one-on-one, but it'd be helpful to have kind of a summary of why you need the new unit. And,
Where you would put it,
Right.
where it would go, if it would go somewhere else.
Yeah, we have all those numbers. In fact, we're actually getting a real good feedback right now because we moved our Med 2 unit into one of the fire stations so we can construct the new Med 2 station. And we've seen a considerable change in our response times because of a lot of our calls come out of that southeast portion of the county. Most of the calls in the county are in the south end, which is where your population's at. That truck running out of southeast is already seeing, we're seeing 4 and 5 minute response times for that area when the truck's in service.
those patients also have the shortest transport distance to the hospital. You get a good turnaround, it really works well out of that area, and we've known that. Southwest is busy too, so we kind of have a trade-off. But if you've seen, we've posted online a couple times with that new system that is completely independent of us hitting a button. It's independent of dispatch reporting our time, which there can always be some error to that, because it's always, hey, whenever they're not busy, they're good and mark you on scene. Sometimes trucks can do it, but we're still maintaining about a 12-minute response time. I think a lot of that too has been because we've moved that truck over there and we're seeing those lower response times. Otherwise, we were still much higher in that area. But our call load is in the south, so we would look to put that truck in the south. But we can provide all that at any time. And while we're needing more trucks, I mean, they're just nonstop. Today, actually been halfway decent, but most days we don't have any responders left in the county most of the time during the day. They're just constantly running, and they're running calls from Jonesville, from Gainesville. We can call for mutual aid, but we found it's faster if we just run the call ourselves. If we want to handle our own calls, we won't want to put our workload onto Dixie or Levy or Alachua, because there's times when they need help too. They're in the same situation we are. So we've got to do something with adding another unit that will help us bring our response times back down. It will help us keep units available and responders available in the county. It just takes one bad accident, and that completely ties up every resource we own.
Yes.
We did a captain's assessment on Tuesday, and my scenario was a simple vehicle, not simple, but it was a vehicle accident with 3 viable patients. And it literally takes every resource plus mutual aid to run that call in this county. That's not uncommon anymore. And that's the traffic trap.
The more people we get.
911
Yeah.
more and more, and it's not just the influx of people in our community, it's the aging of our community. The lack of access to good health care, they end up relying on 911 more. Community paramedicine program has been great. I did want to add to the community paramedicine, as this continues to evolve, we will be able to bill Medicare, Medicaid at some point for this. They're already working out with Matrix to have a revenue stream there, because eventually grant funding is going to stop.
Right.
But if it follows suit with everything else, Medicare, Medicaid, that's probably going to cover the entire cost of it at some point. It'll rest back on the taxpayers again at some point. But it does help us keep that ambulance in service. Get somebody there at the house and prevent them having to call the ambulance. Just yesterday, I ended up transporting a mental health patient myself. Be allowed to do that. Normally law enforcement can do something like that. We wasn't comfortable with them. But it kept our ambulance in the county. We try to be creative and make sure that we keep those resources here when they need them. We're just fighting a losing battle at this point. We knew we were going to have some more people in. And I think this truck was probably a couple of years behind schedule. We probably should have 2 trucks at this point, just to try to keep up and keep our response times down, and keep our units available in our county.
Can you, though, in the next week or two, give us a summary of that?
Absolutely.
That'd be helpful, I think.
Yeah. We've been tracking simultaneous calls. That's another thing it's harder to track that way, but we're looking at the number of calls that the trucks are running at the same time. So even if you have something happen here right now and our truck's not in Trenton, you gotta wait for them to come from Bell. That's the extended response time. But if all of those trucks are gone and coming from Jones or Gainesville, that's what we're trying to track now. We're trying to get a little better numbers on that as well.
Any additional questions on this budget? I mean, we can,
It's a big increase, but it's needed. I realize you haven't added a new unit. How long has it been since we added a new unit in Gilchrist County?
since 2006.
2006, and we're sitting at 2024, and look at the increase in population we've had, so it's probably behind. We should have probably had it 2 or 3 years
And
ago.
truthfully, you've reduced your staff by 3 personnel that could respond to
we've actually decreased the amount of responders. However, every time we think we're gonna get ahead and let's say let's budget next year, let's see if we can budget a little more to move forward with this. Medicaid comes and says you have to pay your EMTs this much, and it's a big number because we have to jump their salary so much, which is, I mean, they definitely need it. They're very underpaid. They still make $15 and $16 an hour, as advanced medical providers.
And they got
The
more
only reason
training,
they have the
and they got
salaries,
more training than a lot of people making a lot more than that.
well, the only reason you see their salaries jump like that is because they work 840 hours of overtime mandatory every year. They're working those long shifts. It used to be, you know, you get some rest at night. It's just not that way anymore. They're just constantly running.
You know, I've made this statement before. You know, I think it's always important for county government to understand that we also have a limited amount of resources. And you have to determine what is the balance between the level of service that we can provide versus the level of payment that people are willing to pay. And if the service is required by the citizens, then they have to understand that we have to be willing to pay for that service. So, you know, as you consider, you know, increasing services, you know, I think it's correct, you know, as we grow, you have to look at adding services because people expect it.
Yeah.
But when you expect an additional service,
You better have.
nobody gets a service for free,
Right.
you know? And so if we look at adding services, that's fine. But we have to learn how to pay for that service, which means what? You have to increase the rate of either a special assessment or an ad valorem.
Yeah.
And I know nobody likes to say that. Nobody likes to talk about that.
But that,
But the fact is, if I have an expectation that I want more service, I've got to be willing to pay for that service because, you know,
Yeah.
Chief's men are not going to work for free.
just, just a quick question, do you realize, are most of the calls that you get repeat to the same people, or is it
So we do have repeat offenders. That is what the community paramedicine program focuses on. So we run a matrix, run a report every so often that says, hey, how many people are, when community paramedicine first started, they wanted to know how many people we went to more than 5 times in 6 months. I could take you to a house right now that if I said the address out loud, you'd end up calling 911 in a minute. But everybody in this county knows his entire medical history.
I'm just,
Every day almost.
I went into the emergency room one night and there was someone there I knew, and I said, well, why are you here? And, well, we came in by ambulance. I said, well, why? He said, well, I had a headache. I'm thinking, you called because you had a headache?
But, you know, the crazy thing is you call because you have a headache, and I can't tell you how many people that Mr. Blaine calls me here to his house because he's got a headache. I should probably take it serious, Mr. Blaine doesn't call the ambulance to his house very often, but you never know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing you can diagnose in the field. It's put them in the truck, drive them to the hospital, and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And we pray it's nothing serious, unfortunately.
But I also,
We've had those that never call us, and when they do, it seems minor, and then you get up there and find out something crazy is going on.
well, I appreciate it more now than ever before because of an episode 3 years ago now, so. And, if it hadn't been for quick service, I'd be a widow or what do they call a man who is not married, a widow, a widower. So, I appreciate the service y'all
I
supply.
do, yes.
And looking through the fire budget here too, the increases that you do see on this without the other truck were very minimal. We added some more money in for our physicals. Firefighters have physicals every so often.
And that was in professional services / physical?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I was going to ask that.
Yeah, we added a little bit more to that. What I would like to start doing, even if we do it every 2 years, because it is kind of expensive, there's a company called Lifescan. We did this a while in Rochester County. A lot of the major departments are going to this. It's you get a complete physical the way they need to be checked out. None of our medical facilities really do this. They draw their blood, they do chest x-rays, they ultrasound the parts that firefighters get cancer in, and we try to catch things early on. And I'd really like to start providing that for our people, to see if we can prevent some of the illnesses that firefighters face due to the profession. The other increase was an increase in firefighter two education. I can't hire firefighters right now. I can find EMTs, and it looks like they're just gonna have to start putting into the school, doing the contract, putting into school training.
We've done that before in the past.
We have. We do it every single year.
Yep.
Add a little bit more money into that, because I think, and other departments are doing it as well. Alachua County is hiring you off the street and paying for all of your education while they do your paycheck, because that's the only way we're hiring these days.
And they just sign a contract with us and say they're gonna work with us so many years.
Right, and if you were trying to get into this field when I got in, it was hard to get into. Today, why would I go pay for my EMT and paramedic school when I can find, I can go get hired, get a job today, and they'll pay me
Right.
all they pay for my classes. That's just gonna be the trend from this point.
And then you know what, it's probably better training because you're on the job doing exactly what you're learning to do in class. And I know, I know from experience, when you're doing what you're being trained to do, at the same time, it really makes sense. And, you know, I've took classes in the University of Florida before I ever taught that basically I learned it to pass the test, but when I went back and got my master's and they started talking about the things we were doing in school with budgeting and funding and all those things, all of a sudden, all the lights came on and I said, oh, that's why we do these things. So it makes a big difference.
The other thing too is you'll never, there's not a better interview process than watching them go through their education. You'll find out exactly what kind of person you have, especially paramedic school. Fire school will break you physically, paramedic school will break you mentally. You'll find out who this person is, and some people excel in this job, some people don't have what it takes to stay in this career very long. So it does give us a good insight. However, I would love to hire fully credentialed people and just move from there, but we're just not getting them. It's not it's a nationwide issue. When the posting comes to the A-list from the fire college, and there's 30 departments looking for people, departments that used to have waiting lists of 500 people are now paying sign-on bonuses. So definitely a way we're gonna have to start going.
You recruit some through the Health Academy and the school in Bell.
We're gonna start working with Health Academy more, because they don't push that EMT portion as much. They push CNA. We'd love to see them push the EMT portion better. Love to catch some of these young athletic people coming out of school. They're great for our community, and if we can get the right ones and get them the education. We have a lot of people that work for us now that are graduates from Brendan Bell.
Yeah. I know I can go up there and every one of them are kids I've had, so I like to see them up there.
When the seniors do the career day, you're normally there, aren't you?
Yes, ma'am. We
Okay.
do that, and we also, in the veteran program, sometimes the Health Academy, we invite them to our center. So they can walk around when they do some of the CPR training. They're invited to our center to do that. They get CPR training in the office. They come outside, see the trucks, talk to the crews, kind of be there when we do shift change. So they're out there helping wash trucks. They're doing some hands-on stuff, trying to get involved. Every now and then we get somebody that likes to.
Well, we thank you for what y'all do.
I'm gonna talk along the lines of what Todd was talking about. And I know I sat down and talked to you, and I sat down and talked to Bobby. I keep getting asked about the fire station on 138, and the fire station at Waxahachie, and the fire station at Spring Ridge. What would it take to get back to where, I know we had volunteers in the past, and I know they were open in the past. What would it take to get back to where we had those fire stations operational, so that I could tell my insurance company that I live within 5 miles of a fire station?
So, and just a straight shot from the hip right now, if you put one person in each one of those stations, just to say it's staff, you're probably looking around $300,000 annually. And that is, when we take that $600,000 cost, that unit, that truck needs 2 people. You just need that fire EMT, one in each of those stations. That is what's been in our 5-year plan plus another med unit. I have been trying to write grants for the paper grant, which will definitely help fund that. We've not been successful yet. A lot of our data, is still newer data. They want to see a lot of history. Prior to 2018, we had no history in our fire data.
Would you have a fire truck to go at each one of those stations?
Yes, sir.
You do?
Yes. That would be the next thing, and now I would urge you to, the fire assessment and the MSTU, gotta watch that so we can pay for the salaries. What is absolutely ridiculous is the way our equipment has went up.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to probably use fund balance. I'm happy that I think the only thing that we still have financed right now is our FCBA's. Am I correct?
Correct.
We've gotten everything else off and got it all paid off because we were paying a chunk every year for debt service. And one thing that I haven't even talked to Bobby about yet is I've been trying to find somebody to build a new brush truck, squad truck for us. The one at the EOC, we budgeted to go out this year and try to find one, but no, we wouldn't pay for it till next year, and it was a $200,000 expense. I got 2 quotes back today at $320,000. We're still looking at some options. I'm trying to find companies that'll build something a little downscale from that. I don't need all the options that some of these trucks come with, but that's kind of where we're landing right now. Fire engines, if you get to buy a new fire engine today, it's $750,000.
Yeah.
And they're absolutely, that's the same truck that when I started here, we could have bought for $400,000, and now they're $750,000, $800,000.
Yeah.
So definitely keep an eye on our MSTU and our fire assessment to help fund the salaries for this. We do have equipment to put in those stations, you know, as well as I do when we start running that equipment. All this stuff's pretty old.
Yeah.
So James, can you repeat? You said 600,000 for a new unit?
600,000 for an ambulance.
Ambulance.
2 people.
Okay, and then,
Technically, that's 6 people. You got 2 people per shift or 3 shifts.
okay, and then Tommy's question was, what would it take? So if we wanted to do that in every station, it would cost that. But you mentioned one person.
Well, actually, it would be,
No, that would be 600,000 for each station if we had a,
no, ma'am, it would be 600,000 for the ambulance. You would be,
You have to have 3 people
yeah,
at each
that's
station, so $220,000 a station. So you got 2 more stations, so you're looking at $450,000.
yeah, I'm sorry, I misspoke on that.
I was basically talking about a fire truck, though, not a.
That's
ambulance.
for-
No, we have fire trucks, but we don't have volunteers.
Right.
I did get a volunteer application recently, who seemed promising. Not too much right now, but I had to decline that one as well, and I'll give you afterwards. Kind of see some of the people that are applying for volunteers. The big red flags jump out as soon as we start doing certain kind of checks, and I can't put that person in the station by themselves, or would I want them wearing my uniform?
Is there some grants that would help pay for volunteer training or something like that?
The training is not the problem, it's the people. But volunteer training,
The
firefighter,
quality of the people.
well, or the willingness to volunteer.
Yeah.
Firefighter 1, you can do that training online now, and then I send you to the fire college for a weekend to do your hands-on skills, and you're done. And the online training is free.
Didn't it used to be like 240 hours or something like that?
I believe it is too. I still around somewhere around there for firefighter 1. The whole program, all the way through minimum standard, is a little over 500 hours. Probably getting close to 600 these days. I've been a little bit if I went through, but get somebody to get my training free or minimal cost. You would have to pay something to go to the fire college to be skilled.
Yeah.
If that really was, if we were getting people to do that, we would probably be skilled ourselves. We've had some instructors, and we would put more people through the instructor course. Little money up front, train our people, and we just do it right there in house. We don't get those people have to do that.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Mr. Newton one question before I leave, if I may. It sounds like we got some information they want us to bring back on fire as well, that they've requested. Would it be okay to just move the, ambulance and rescue service and the continuation of fire to August the 1st?
To August 1st?
Yeah, Or would you, I just know
don't-
you
we
got a
don't
pretty
want the
busy
29th.
schedule on the 29th,
Um,
or whatever, I mean, yeah.
And we have a meeting the 29th too, don't we, July
Yeah.
29th?
yeah, I mean, I think here's the challenge.
I know there's a lot of information, so you really do it on 29th.
Well, here's the challenge. The 29th is when the board decided that they wanted to set the tentative rate.
Mhm.
And so there's enough information going to be there at the end of that meeting to make that decision. So I think that's up to you guys. If you think you can kind of get an idea of what you want to do by the end of the 29th, you know, without the information, then it doesn't matter to me either way. You know, it's just a matter of us putting it on the calendar. But that's up to you guys.
I think I know where I'm leaning, so I think I can go without the information, but can't speak for everybody here.
We'll work around it.
You're saying not to do the EMS on the 29th?
Well, I was just, you got less going on the first, that's the only reason I was looking at that, but we can do it on the 29th. That's not a problem.
Can we start these
meetings a little earlier when you go back to school, sure?
August 5th.
So the next meeting, we have mental health, property appraiser, tax collector, aid to private, general government, courthouse operations, medical examiner, rodeo, solid waste, EM, Heart Springs, TDC, veterans.
Actually, EM's already in there, and we had it in there twice.
What's that?
We had EM in there twice, so it's actually on there too.
So could we start the 29th at 2 o'clock or is it already too late?
No, we're advertising Monday, so,
Fine with me if you wanna start an hour early and throw those on there so we
So we can
get that
get,
information
Okay.
before we make that final idea
okay, so we're gonna,
or the final
on
recommendation.
the 29th, we're gonna change it to 3 o'clock.
Yeah. Is that
Yeah.
okay with everybody?
Three.
3 o'clock?
go two.
I like
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock's okay with me.
Yeah, we discussed going later because somebody might be able to come after work or something, but.
2 o'clock, we need to get it done before
All right.
we make recommendations. So 2 o'clock?
So we're gonna do 2 o'clock and we're gonna add fire and EMS
Right.
to, okay.
on the 29th at
On
2
the
o'clock?
29th.
Okay.
29th is 2 o'clock.
If any of y'all wanna get with me and if you want any specific information, like I said, a lot of the stuff is, I can have most of it in a day. If you have anything specific that you wanna know about, any specific numbers or, plans, call matrix, anything you think of, if you get with me, I will have it before then, or I'll provide it to you well before the meeting. We can discuss it then as well.
To answer the public, if I came to you and said, what would it take to open those 3 fire stations, could you give me a ballpark figure?
1.8 million.
Huh?
1.8 million.
Basically 2 million bucks.
What,
I mean, to open it, I think with the way they're asking you to open it, like we have a 24/7 response, that's 1.8 million. That'd be the 600,000 that we're talking about now, plus the 2 more stations, that's $1.8 million.
how much, Tommy
And-
mentioned insurance rates, so if we did that, how much impact would it have on insurance rates? And could we save residents money that way?
You could, and I tried to, when I first started here, that was my goal, was to attack those insurance rates, attack our ISO rating. One, we're gonna be hindered by our ISO rating based on our water supply. County, that'll always be an issue. If I've got 3 guys sitting there with tanker trucks ready to go, to do a tanker shuttle operation, to the scale that Rockland County did and got a rating for their whole county, we're not gonna see that much reduction there. What I ran into is, you've got more people in newer houses now, but how many people out there don't have homeowners insurance? They have no benefit at all from us dropping the ISO rate. I would love to see it drop. You know, any of us that have homeowners insurance would see a reduction, and not just a reduction in your, just because of bill, but a lot of people in this county are the subprime, insurance provider. So people like State Farm, for one, they're not gonna write policies in certain parts of our county because, they're not protected. So you have to go to the subprime, basically just like a lender, the rates are higher.
One of my neighbors went from 12,000 to 43,000, 4,300, I think it was. I mean, 1,200 to 4,300.
Right, and so
Older house.
being able to provide better service would definitely not only, you'd be able to bring in those larger companies, that would be able to get better rates, but it's not for the people who don't have homeowners insurance, or can't get homeowners insurance anyway, you've not done them any favors. And
And are
that's
you-
what I really ran into when I did the research on that. Now, if you have a home in the woods of Allcrest and we built a fire station there, I could save you way more than you would ever pay in a fire assessment or NOCU. But that is a very small portion of our community.
And the challenge in what you're talking about has nothing to do with fire. It has to do with hurricane.
Nothing to do with fire.
It has nothing to do with fire. It has to do with hurricane.
Well, there's a large portion in fire from what I was told. Now, I've only spoke to one insurance guy, but our ISO rating is every week I'm writing letters of people trying to get, and it's sad, you'll get a letter from an insurance company, nice insurance company, hey, what's your protection class of this? What's your response? And then a week later, I'm gonna get them from the other company. Hey, what's your protection rating? What's your response? And it is a lot on hurricanes, but fire can make a difference, again, if you have homeowners insurance.
Yeah, I had to do a hurricane mitigation study on my house because I had a massive increase like that on my health insurance. And I did this $125 inspection, and it reduced my insurance from a massive increase because of like hurricane strips and things like that, or hurricane strapping. So I mean, insurance is complex. It's not just one factor, but.
That was coming from Alachua. I was there when they dropped their ISO rating. It made a huge impact on their community. And again, we did the research here, and I found more people that all I'm doing is charging a higher fire assessment, and so
It didn't benefit the majority of the population because of.
right, there's some that it's going to benefit great, but the ones that are truly struggling, the guy that just built the 6,000 square foot house, the fire assessment's not hurting. It's the one that lives in the single wide mobile home, 1972 model.
Yeah.
All we're doing is taking money out of them. So we've really tried to kind of watch that. We still need the fire protection, but we've kind of switched our gears to say, what's the benefit and how we're going to affect people's bottom line.
Put it into perspective, your current fire assessment generates $978,000. So calculate that tack $1.8 million on top of that
Yeah, you would have to,
on your need and think about what that means for your special assessment.
you would have to double your special assessment.
No, that would be tripling your special assessment.
Well, because the other half would come out of the MSPU for EMS.
Mm,
So all of our responders from this point on will be full certified. They'll all be fire and EMS. So we would,
Well, bottom line is that if you add $1.8 million, you're adding
Yes.
$1.8 million.
Yeah.
You're adding taxes, whether or not because there's no way to do that kind of an increase without doing some sort of a massive change to your
yes, it is.
your special assessment and your MSTU structure.
It's a big jump. The only thing I like better about the MSPU is
service?
there's a base
Well,
value.
that's what it comes down to.
So the
Or,
people with higher
instead of
value-
doing all at one time, look at gradually doing a little bit each year. That's another option.
Well, I think that's what we definitely need to do. We've got to start somewhere. and
Right.
get
Oh,
this
yeah,
truck
we
on
need
the
to.
road. But if we can slowly work these rates
Have like
up,
a plan. This is gonna be our plan.
and as the values go up too, you might not have to go much to stuff on the rate.
Right.
We just don't want to get back down. Because again, every year since I've been here, we've had probably almost a 50% increase in the salaries of first responders. Now, that's just the operations crew. Has nothing to do with admin. It's what we've had to do with them, and that's been driven by insurance companies.
How are we doing on our collection fee?
So I haven't checked the collections this month. I know that we're getting caught up. with a lot of stuff. We're getting a lot more reports put in the billing system. So I kind of want to see where that comes out. I'm in the middle of doing our, data pull for the PEMT. So that shows everything in the collected fiscal year. Now they do it on the state fiscal year. So it's not the same as their number. But
We used to get something, didn't we, where it showed what we collect or something? Can we get something like that again to look at?
different.
How do we compare, you might have said this when I was out, but other surrounding counties in salary, you mentioned training, you mentioned some are doing signing bonuses.
We are, I won't say that we're the lowest for what we do. Dixie County, us and Dixie are kind of right there at the entry level, but Dixie County pays for experience pay. So every person I have here, because most of my staff is at base pay, because we have those sudden increases. Most of my staff can get a Dixie County, and some of them could get $1 or $2 increase, some of them get 20 cents. Our firefighters, EMTs in Gilchrist County make more than you do in Alachua County, by a couple $1,000s. But they tack on special teams and the availability to do more things in their county, they jump up pretty fast. Paramedics is always going to be the hardest one to fill, and we're kind of right there with some of these counties, and then Lee County jumps up and goes, they're $10,000, $15,000 a year more than we are right now. They're competing with Citrus County. Citrus County jumped up to almost $70,000 for paramedics. Chance Care just announced they're going up to about $70,000 for paramedics. Even some of their ground teams. So you're going to see that's where the base is going to be here real soon. We're paying $57,000 for a dual certified firefighter paramedic. The only person that we're really competitive with right now is Dixie County with that. But you want to go to Alachua County and run 37 calls today? Yeah.
Trade-offs.
Yeah.
In our county, they're also allowed to get a little extra overtime that they may not get in other counties. Is that true?
Well, they're overtime's plentiful just about anywhere you go.
Oh, is it?
Everybody's understaffed.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the overtime we have here is forced sometimes. Because we are short. We're holding our head above water right now. With the availability of another med unit, that might help, so they're not as busy. Right now, what I'm seeing is they're so busy running calls that station maintenance is starting to lack. We do our own station maintenance. We do a lot of our own vehicle maintenance. We don't have extra people that take care of all that stuff for us. Yeah, if we need something major done, we'll call maintenance and they'll come take care of it, but they try to clean their own stuff around there, and it's getting to the point where that's where you start to see it fall first. There's just not enough time in the day to do their tasks. And if there's not enough time in the day to do those tasks, then there's not enough availability of these first responders in the area to continue to run these calls and keep our response times down and really get there and make those sessions count.
If you put another ambulance on and stuff like that, how hard it would be to manage?
It's gonna be challenging to manage. It's like if we pulled the plug right now and started it up, and it would probably take months to get the staffing for it. Right now, we have those paramedic positions that I've not been able to staff yet. So, I would hope that, I mean, one of the things that's negative about us is you know that you're gonna come here, we're almost running like Alachua County. We're not running the number of calls, but if you run 10 calls today in that truck, you drive to Gainesville 10 times a day, you've got 20 hours worth of work done.
Yep.
In Alachua County, you might have touched triple the amount of patients, but you're still sitting in that truck back and forth all day long. There's no downtime. There's no go heat up your meal. After a bad call, sometimes they're running back and forth between these calls. We've left structure fires to go work chest pains and not a chance to get a shower, change clean clothes, anything like that. So that seems negative for us when you want to come work here. And you're not gonna get a break. We're just gonna run you ragged. So with adding another truck, I think that would give us some room to be more competitive that way. And if we could ever get to paying for some experience, maybe get some of these people that are already certified, I could pay them over base pay, we might be more attractive there too.
But I think that's our biggest downfall at Gilchrist County is the pay. And all our departments.
We've got a lot of benefits to work here too, though.
Yeah.
If we can manage the workload a little better and spread it out a little more amongst some more people, I think we'll be in a very good position. And that is our goal, is to start opening up some of these stations. The SAFER grant would give us the money to do that right away, and we would still be trying to get them hired.
How many have applied for their grant?
Yeah, but after 3 years,
It comes up.
you either choose to fund it or you lay everybody off.
Right.
And I'll eventually get the funding. We'll keep applying until we get the funding. We'll figure out what it is that we need to make that grant successful.
Mhm.
That's the only grant that I've written that has not been successful for this county. We'll figure it out. We'll even go get professional help if we need to, because that's several $1 million. But we're not gonna move forward with it if we don't think we can fund this at some point.
Right.
Because I don't want to hire these people, get them
Yeah.
trained up, show this level of service, and then lay them all off.
I wouldn't, I think the sheriff's department had something like that one time and we opted out because we couldn't afford to.
Cops, man.
Dixie County did the same thing. They got the SAFER grant. They hired their people. They wanted to raise the fire assessment. You raise the fire assessment this much, you get to keep all these people, and they voted no. And they laid off several, like more than 10 people, I believe, for lack of funding. And we're gonna do it. We need to go all the way.
I don't want to get into laying people off.
No, sir. So it took them a long time to recover from that in the industry as well, too. Nobody has come work for a place that we don't know if we're gonna job them on.
I'm just worried one day with the governor giving the sheriff's department money for the deputies,
When are they
the next governor don't. We pick and eat something.
All right, well, thank you very much. We certainly do appreciate what you do, and,
Yeah.
we'll
Sure
get the
do.
second half of this at our next meeting.
Yes, sir. Thank you, James.
Thank you, appreciate it. Do we have any others we have not hit now? Supervisor election
Mine.
discussion. Huh?
My
Oh,
budget,
the clerk.
Clerk, oh, yeah.
Is that the only one we have left?
yes,
Okay.
We fixing a good.
page, 182,
In our big book?
yes, ma'am.
What page in our flyer, in our handbook, I mean, in our.
Page 23. So hopefully mine's gonna be considered fairly easy.
Okay.
Personnel services, we've got an increase of 1.3%. That's strictly due to, health insurance. I've got a decrease of almost 18% in operating expenses. We're able to find our data vaulting expenses have gone down, which was the primary change, actually. So anyway, my total budget request as of right this moment is a decrease of 0.5%. And glad to answer any questions.
Hard to argue with that.
Is that?
It's hard to argue with that, going
Yeah.
down. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we don't know, we don't mind them going down any, and we appreciate what you do, and,
I mean, I'll be right here to tell you, I'm with everybody else, I'm expecting that hopefully there's gonna be raises at some point before this process is over.
So none of the constitutional officers have raises in there.
That's my understanding, is
Okay.
everybody, stuck
Just
to,
gonna wait and see what happens. Yep.
And the insurance increases in here or not?
Yes.
my insurance does,
Oh,
my
yeah.
insurance increase is.
Is it?
So you went down even with that?
Yeah. Yeah, the board and my budget does include the health insurance.
okay, then our next meeting will be,
Next meeting is gonna be, July 29th at 2:00.
yep. And, anything else we need to cover? We need to,
Yeah, what do y'all wanna do about these ads? I gave you a copy of what
Oh,
they
yeah.
posted
Yeah.
in Levy County, and then I came up, kinda picked parts of that. And also utilized what Gilchrist County had used in the past. If y'all were happy with that, we can start running it. The, salary was an issue. You need to determine what the expected salary range shall be. I don't know if you wanna look it over and bring it back the next time we come, but that's on the 29th, and that's only gonna give you 30 days to, for it to be published, so. Levy around there is on the Florida Association of Counties website,
And I have called two counties that are below us, Madison and Dixie. I couldn't get a hold of the two counties above us yet. But it's within this range right here that we have.
It is still in that range.
With, Madison and Dixie is within this range. I'm gonna get a hold of, Holmes and Taylor. I've tried to call, but there was no answer. But with, Madison and Dixie, it's within this range right here that we have listed.
What's the range?
75 to 100.
100,000.
So theirs is within that range for their, administrator. And then I know they also have a, assistant administrator. That might be something we might wanna look at.
I think we need to.
I think so too. So I would, I'm okay with this range right here.
I'm okay with this range, especially if we do plan on hiring a.
Administrator, yeah.
to work with them.
And then I'll try to have,
I know it's a lot of work, for Bobby, and he's 13 years experience, so you put someone in there with less experience, and it's not gonna be as easy as them to cover everything he's been able to cover.
yeah, Madison and Dixie each had an assistant.
Yep.
And then according on the website, Holmes and Taylor did also, but I haven't talked to them yet, but I'll try to get a hold of them. And
Yeah,
also,
and talking to, Ms. Moore, I asked about the range, and I hear you, Sharon, and I've also gotten some of those numbers. She said a lot of folks now apply even with the range, and if you select them, they're gonna tell you, I want more than that, and you could say yes or no, and then you go to the second person or the third person, and so, she didn't act like the salary range was as critical, but I wouldn't be surprised if, we get applicants looking for more than that. I think, Levy's at 108 or 110 or something.
Theirs is
Yeah,
100 to 165.
I didn't look at Levy because
Okay.
Levy,
Levy County.
Yeah.
Bottom is 100.
Levy's way bigger than
Yeah,
Gilchrist.
I agree.
And they have an assistant.
I just looked at the two counties above us in population and the two counties below us.
I think the assistant is important part of
I
that.
think so too.
Yeah.
I agree.
Now, if this person didn't have an assistant, then yeah, we might want to, do more, but I do believe in with the, we've grown,
Yeah.
we need an assistant.
And $100,000 is a good salary. I mean, that's
Yeah.
pretty good salary, so,
I might apply, I must say.
Okay.
What's the consensus? Do you want me to?
We need to, advertise this.
I think we need to advertise it.
Oh, what did we do with the thing about Gilchrist? Did we add in there that they have to live in here within 6 months?
Yep.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Let's see, that's on page,
General requirements on top of page 2.
that's right.
Number 5. yeah.
What else was added to this beside that?
Well, I can't tell you because I've added so many of this.
Okay, that's
the
fine.
third
I'll
draft
look
here.
at it real quick.
Um,
Let me see.
Yeah, one of the things I saw.
We added, instead of requiring that they have a bachelor's degree, we added that, 5 years' experience in major, managerial experience could substitute in lieu of having a bachelor's degree. We're afraid you wouldn't get any applicants if you just required the college degree.
Mhm.
But that would be entirely up to you. We also added in there that, Gilchrist County residents would be given first preference with equally qualified candidates. So if you had the same criteria and one was for Gilchrist, we'd go with the Gilchrist one because you wanted to hire. We didn't want to limit it strictly to Gilchrist County because you might not get one applicant from Gilchrist County or something, and they might not be qualified.
I think we need someone who definitely got some experience. You don't want an inexperienced person jumping into this job. It's too important a job to try to do on the job training with someone new. But, I also understand with experience comes with an increase of pay, but,
Well, I understand that there is an employment link. I think Tammy might have mentioned that to me, but like they did with this Florida Association of Counties, there's some kind of link that you can hook to and it goes out, and Caitlin, they can
I
explain
know
that.
that it goes to, Indeed for sure. I'm not sure if we go to the Florida Association of Counties, I'd have to double check, but
Well,
I
it
do know.
should, even though
I-
if it doesn't
Oh,
with
even
the link,
doesn't, I know I go to Google and all that as well, like computer search up jobs.
maybe that's what she was telling me, that it goes out to a number of
Yeah, it
sources.
goes out to.
But I would
multiple
recommend this one because everybody looks at the Florida Association of Counties magazine for the advertisements, and Lee put theirs in there as well. And we put the closing date at August the 30th, which is a Friday,
And this will be on our website too.
and it'll put it on the website.
Mhm.
Yes, ma'am.
So you'll take the applications up to August 30th.
Well, August 30th and cut it off, and then you can have a committee to review them, see if people meet the criteria, eliminate the ones that don't, and interview the ones that do, and set a time period.
Maybe also put it on, run it on our Facebook page that, you know,
We
see.
can add it, we've had other job postings before.
I placed, I
You
took
know,
the liberty to I put Caitlin as the contact person.
Yes,
to-
I'll be the contact
If
person on
people
this one.
call about applications, she can forward those. She'll also receive all the, applications that are completed and hold them until you have all the August 30th date is expired and everything.
You said you would put it on our Facebook page
We
also?
can put it on our Facebook page.
But the salary's okay with y'all?
Yes, sir,
Okay,
within that range.
We're gonna put this on tomorrow then?
as soon as possible, that's
Yeah.
what I think. Yes, ma'am, you can have that.
Cause we're gonna have to figure out once how many applications we get, then how we're gonna narrow them down, like the top 5 or 6 that we're gonna,
Yeah.
kind of like we did last time.
all right, anything else we need to cover?
I have an update on the engineer for the roads at Spring Ridge. Can I talk about that, Dave?
Wouldn't advertise to discuss really, but, I probably would wait, Tommy.
Can you
It's
let
not a
Bobby
gen-
Crosby
it's not a
know?
gen-
And he can
I
send us
can
an
let
email?
Bobby know.
Yeah, let's do that, let's do that.
And
since
then
we
can
didn't
Bobby
advertise.
send us an email then?
Yeah, he can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be,
Okay.
yeah, as long as you don't share them and as long as you
Okay.
don't collaborate or discuss it
What page?
before the next board meeting.
All right, got a motion to adjourn?
We have a
All